Welcome to the August 14th issue of Lunch and Learn. Our topic today is Commercial, It's Another World, where we take on a few of the items that you really ought to know about if you're going to venture over into the world of commercial from residential, where you may be more comfortable. As always, we have Tony Woodard, who is the Chief Mechanical Inspector for the state of Arkansas, and I will be talking with you about those topics. Commercial, It's Another World. Let's jump right into it. One of the things, Tony, that's very similar to residential is this item here on bath exhaust termination. You want to start with that? We've got some really cool slides here in a minute to look at, but let's just start with this right now.
Let's start with that. And you're going to see some upcoming slides that we're using for training for the sole purpose. They were permitted prior to our new code, but with the new code, the clearances for dryer exhaust, bath exhaust, the 3 foot is deemed environmental air. Now, don't get confused with dryer exhaust versus bath exhaust. There's a little different animal there. And that 3 foot requirement, they want that. They want a true 3 foot requirement from not where you open the top of the window. And if you have to measure to the top of the window to get your 3 foot, which we're, this apartment where it is now, we're going with that because it was like I said, it was permitted prior to the new code. They're wanting a 3 foot direction like you're seeing in your air there. The bottom here, they're opening, they're using a window in the commentary. They show that this is not one of these windows that drops down. This is the bottom shelf opening up. Therefore, your 3 foot starts up there, not down here.
Yeah.
And 10 foot away from your mechanical intakes. That gets tricky in multifamily dwelling. You've got multiple bath exhausts, multiple dryer exhausts, and you're confined in space.
So, well, the cool thing, in fact, one of the things that got us started on this was this picture right here.
Yes, sir.
Was showing this apartment complex and showing where all those bathroom exhausts come out. Yep. Looking at the next picture, you can see those bath exhausts.
Right, and some of these are dryer exhausts. Some are baths, some are dryer. So. And you can look to the right of that picture. You can see that dryer exhaust at the bottom over there. And that one actually, it's distorted a little. That would probably meet the 3 foot area. This right here above these windows. Now, you might say they never opened the window, but the code is there for a reason. And that's a little too close. This is up above it there. But like I said, this was permitted prior to our new code. We're wanting the architect design guys to try to watch out for this. And because the heat and air guy will just start running. Well, that's where they showed to put it out. And we're wanting to educate the heat and air contractor. Be careful of that. Get your 3 foot. Try to picture your 3 foot away from any part of that window, so you'll be okay.
One of the things that I thought was important about this is that, we think that the plans that we might get on a project this large would be okay. But, as a heat and air conditioning contractor, you're responsible for making sure that it, in fact, truly is okay to be able to confer back with the engineer and back with the general to say, hey, this might not work. Maybe we should check this thing out.
Well, I can't use your pointer, but look at this picture and we'll explain why some of this happens. So you see the 2 windows and then you see the change in the siding or whatever. So if you would picture, that is your fire separation assembly wall between one apartment and another. You can't put anything in there. So they've got they only have certain room in certain area where they can carry those bath exhausts or dryer exhausts, where sometimes they can line them up and you see them going vertical up through there. So that's part of the problem. Certain things like the only thing in a fire separation assembly wall is electrical outlets. There's a rated box. Allow for your plug-in and your light switch to go in there. That's it. You don't get to put your bath exhaust, dryer exhaust, kitchen exhaust. So it is a confinement issue. So that's part of trying to know on the front end with the plans when you're bidding it. Okay, where am I terminating these things?
And again, I think it's important for a contractor to understand that just because the plans say it's okay, he still has a role in making sure that somebody did not make a mistake. Because a lot of changes happen from time to time. And, when you get there and you start putting the system in, you got to say, hey, wait just a minute, this might not be right. And if you don't know, Next thing you know, you put it in wrong, and then you're responsible for changes.
Yeah. And that's getting expensive in a hurry right there.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
Yes,
Here
it
we
does.
go from, again, just like it is on residential. So our guys should know that pretty well.
Yes, sir. That buying the cap should be coming that way.
Yeah. So now we're to dryer exhaust.
Dryer exhaust, they will allow that 3 foot. Now, you can't put a dryer in a soffit. You can put it, high in the wall, down low. You can put it up on a roof pitch, gable in.
Mhm.
That 3 foot, they will allow that. And in the mechanical ventilation intake, sometimes on that's another, never mind. Go ahead. This is, yeah.
Well, I notice here on this screen that it says bath ventilation exhaust here, but we're really talking about dryer, but it's similar. It's just like bath, except for the fact that you cannot terminate through the soffit. Did I just say that
Now,
right?
bath exhaust can terminate through the soffit. Your fresh air intake can come in through the soffit, and bath exhaust can go through the termination soffit with a termination kit. It can't just go, it's got an approved kit. Dryer exhaust cannot.
Gotcha. Okay, so here are 4 items that maybe we just take them one at a time, Tony.
Yes, so the exhaust on the kitchen, that needs to be metal. That's metal on the kitchen. That's because that is a minimum 28 gauge. That starts at just your single family dwelling, and then you go up in gauge based on your occupancy. You get to an R2 townhouse, if you decide to put an exhaust system, now you're bumping up to 26 gauge. This is in your fire code. So the next one over, the class 1 flexible bath exhaust, this is flex connector, not flex duct. A gentleman asked me, well, can I run flex duct 25 foot since the flex connector is only allowed to be run by 14 foot? You can use a flexible, actual flex duct rated with the insulation and all that. You can't pull the liner out of it, but if you want to run an insulated flex duct as your bath exhaust, you can. Now, it's got to meet the requirements per ADC. It has to be supported every 4 foot. When you make a turn, it's going to have to be on a hard mechanical 90. It'll have to have the approved connectors on it, when you pull the flexible, then you pull the insulation back and seal it up. Those 14-foot runs is what's getting everybody. That's what we're seeing. They're running that flex, that class 1, I think it might come in a 50-foot roll, and they'll run that thing over. That is 14-foot maximum. So if you're not going to terminate within 14 foot, you're going to be metal, and you have to be metal where you're never going to be able to see it. You got a picture in the construction phase. Is this going to get covered up with sheetrock in the wall? Is it going to be covered up by insulation? At that point, that is always metal. Then you can come up above the insulation level and transition to the class 1 flex connector with a maximum of 14 foot if you get to your termination. That's when you can use the class 1 flexible connector. Now,
Tony, is that true on residential as well?
That's residential as well. So when ICC came up with this, the house fires that they looked at were in R1s. They did townhouses, and the majority of them were in R4, your single family dwelling. The flex connector was being pulled tight where you come out of the vent. It was being pulled tight, and that's where the fire started. Then they said, well, we're going to come up with a hard mechanical 90, then go to the flex, so you won't collapse it or turn it too sharp right there and overheat that.
I understand. Now, this is something for a residential guy like myself, I don't know anything about.
Okay. So what he's looking at, you've got your radiation dampers too. You got your square, you got your round. Now, those are actually in line we can put in, but they sell a kit that fits. Are they right now, what you're seeing, a lot of the contractors are buying the actual insulated boot with the radiation damper already in it, manufactured that way. That is when you picture your first and second, if you got a 3-story building, you got your first floor, your second floor, you've got your plenum in your mechanical room, and then they're coming up and they're not hard piping with a branch run to the register, to the boot. They're coming up with their plenum, they're using takeoffs, then they're using flexible and dropping down to a 90 or into that boot. that smoke damper, radiation damper, if you use that flex connector, you got to put the radiation damper in there because there's occupants above you. It can burn through and cause the fire to go between the horizontal assembly this way. If you hard pipe it, the fire is going to stay in there well long enough for occupants to leave the building. Flex duct will melt immediately. So the fire damper stops the vortex from swinging through, is what it does. You get a hole here and you get a hole up there. So that's required if you use the flexible connector, first and second floor. You get to the third floor in the attic, it's kind of a different animal.
We go, here are 5 items that it talks about here. Fire dampers at vertical openings.
And there's your 26. The duct shall be contained, located, cavity shall be constructed at 26 gauge. That's the damper. That's the outside part of it. The duct opening into a one dwelling unit, sleeping unit, you can't do that. You can't go from, well, I'm sorry, they're talking about it's going to be continuous. You're not going to separate it like we were trying to show. When you exceed the 4-inch or the 100 square inches, there's a thing about that, and that's really based on, picture yourself staying at a bed and breakfast, and all of a sudden we went in there and we decided we're going to do bath exhaust from here. They're talking about there's certain openings. When we penetrate that horizontal assembly, we're not going to have anything more than 100 square inches. We can't exceed certain things, even if we tried to use a Hilti rated fire assembly. And the annular space protected by the patches of flame, again, that's going into the rating. And then this part in 717, that's really geared again for commercial. Yeah, that's more geared for your commercial. But we have these occupancies that is commercial that's confusing. So take a senior assisted living where they're ambulatory people. They just don't have all the faculties to, maybe take care of their medicine or so. So we have somebody that watches them, but yet they have their own dwelling they live in. There's certain things with the fire code that upscales and trumps what we do. And you might drive by that house and it looks like a 2-story house. There's some of these occupancies that are looking like structures that are used for it's extra skilled care living. And I'm going blank on what they call the name of that in our occupancy. It's I'll think of it tomorrow, Tom. It's got its own name, is what it is.
Well, one of the things that as we look at this here and we move on, that I think that it's important, and the one thing that I was hoping that we would accomplish is that we would show enough code and we would show enough pictures from the commentary for people like me, residential, very, very light commercial, to say, hey, you know what? Maybe I ought to not be quite so brave as to jump into something that's commercial when I really know residential well. I need to stay in my own ballpark, or I need to make sure that I fully understand code and that I'm dealing directly with the engineer, because in cases like this, your engineer is your friend.
Yeah, they are. And that's a good picture there you're talking about, when you can see some of these townhouses we're talking about, that the bottom floor's got a garage and they pull in and they utilize part of the garage, and then they build what you might think is an extended plenum per se, to go up, trunk off, go up to the second floor and come down. And that's a good illustration of what we're doing there. And I'll give you an example of when you get more stringent is, say that third floor, you have an exterior door that goes out, and then your neighbor has an exterior door, and both of these lead to a common area where they might set patio furniture and have a little outdoor. There's more protection we got to do there as well. So be careful in the type of building. Make sure you understand all levels have to be protected, because you got to quote that in metal. You've got to.
And of course, where it's talking here about penetrating a fire resistant rated system, you got to make sure that you are sealing that annular space.
Right. I just took some good pictures. We have brand new inspector in the Northeast, Kerry Baker. They had to set all of the condensers on one end of the building and go through 3 apartments. There is a rated Hilti assembly. It's a canister. You go through that fire rated assembly. The line sets go through it. The hotter this thing gets, it seals completely off. The copper can melt away. This thing seals up and seals it. That is what's required. And guys and gals, you've got to get that approved on the front end where you go in there. So I'm gonna do it. Get with your architect, get with your engineer, get with your fire marshal, and get that approved on the front end. They're about $289 a canister for the ones we were looking at.
I'm sorry. I laughed at that because I just thought, what if you don't know and you bid the job and all of a sudden you show up and you got a $289 canister? You got.
I mean, there's a fix, but you get a fat wallet. So.
Right. This was an interesting one to me in that it says that if you have an exhaust air plenum that has the capacity of handling 2,000 cubic feet per minute, you need a duct smoke detection system. Is that only true for a commercial?
Yes, that's only true for commercial. We don't, because we have the new requirements now with the smoke shutdown, and actually now you don't have to have gas in your home. If you put a home that has a attached garage, you have to have the combo carbon monoxide smoke detector. We have the alarms in place to notify the occupants to get out of those things. And we typically have enough egress, even if we have, say we design a house that's 3,000 square foot and we can do a 5-ton system in it. We've got 3 exits, multiple exits most of the time. By fire code, the bedrooms have to have egressable windows, meaning they have to be operable windows, ways out of that. There's certain areas in commercial, you might have a long exit travel distance that's over 50 feet before you get to your exit. That's why we don't want to pull the smoke in the direction that you have to exit if the fire's behind you or whatever. So that's criteria with the smoke shutdown and 2,000 CFM or larger.
You think we'll ever go to that in residential where you got?
Yes, I do. And I'm going to tell you here's what's going to kick that in. A2L. We are about to start monitoring single family dwelling just for the fact the propane propellant is flammable enough. You're going to start seeing monitors high and low, and we're going to start seeing shutdown devices on residential. That's coming.
Welcome to a new world, huh?
Yes, sir.
Here is let me see here if I can show this picture. It shows kind of what you were talking about a few minutes ago, coming to a firewall with metal and then being able to transition to flexible if you're in a commercial application. Right.
And then you would have that ceiling boot. That's a good picture right there. That ceiling boot has that radiation. It's a butterfly. When the clamp melts, it shuts down or comes this way, however you want to look at it. It's up there like that. It'll open up at that 180 degrees or 148, 160, whatever fuse link's on the one you have. That's exactly a good picture showing like a flex connector. Now, that right there, if that is a true flex connector, not flex duct, that would only be allowed in a plenum rated above ceiling condition deal. That's not allowed if you're not treating it. That has to be flex duct, meaning it would be the vapor barrier and the insulation all in one. The flex connector is what we see at the old Pulaski Tech and the hospitals where we have a plenum rated ceiling above. We're conditioning that air. The flex connector feeds a main trunk line that's going through, and it goes and you hit your little thermostat and VAV opens up and treats that room. That's where you mainly see that. Correct.
I see. All right. Tony, here's maybe one of the most important things we've covered, and that is how to get a 2021 IMC commentary and what they cost. I copied this directly off their website. That if you only want a book with a soft cover, it costs you $164. If you're looking for a PDF download, it costs you $140. I think I paid a little bit more than that for mine. Anyway, the one thing I like about the PDF is that when you download it to your computer, you can then search on your computer, and that makes it a little bit easier. But if you need to carry it in your truck, you need that soft cover.
Yeah, that search, just key in a word and it pulls it up. That's handy. But you got to have it with you too when you're in the field out there, and we carry the ones in the truck. But yeah, that's handy. But I thought you told me you had a few of the regular code books that you would sell at a pretty good price to individuals if anybody needed one.
I've got 10 or 12 left over from our expo last fall.
Okay.
And they cost us $149 plus the shipping. For people listening to the program today, if they want one, it'll cost $100 plus the freight, and the freight's going to be around $10. So for about $110, if you'll send me an email, then we'll let you have one of those at $100 plus the freight.
That's a good deal.
Yeah.
It's a good
One
deal.
of the things that I had never noticed before, and this is a book that ICC has, it's Mechanical Code Essentials, and boy,
Right.
it talks on the level I understand.
Good. Yeah. So if you dove in depth to it, where it basically is the commentary for like your NFPA, that picture right there showing that Type 1 kitchen hood, and then you got some no-oil systems. It's a good book.
Tony, thank you for your time today. I know you've got a really busy schedule, but this is the best way that we can work together in partnership to inform our industry on how to abide by code and thereby do a better job for our customers, both residential and commercial. If you've got any questions or compliments or complaints, call 501-682-9201. Somebody at the Department of Labor and Licensing HVACR program will be able to take your call or be able to get back to you to be able to answer those questions that you may have. Again, that's 501-682-9201. Our next Lunch and Learn will be September the 11th. We're with you every second Monday of each month. We hope you enjoy them and get a lot out of them. We thank Tony, thank Lindsay with the Department of Labor and Licensing, and all the folks over there for making it possible. Until September the 11th, we wish you well. Take care of yourself. It's been a hot summer, and you know that better than I. See you September the 11th.